G'day guys, this is Tier and welcome back to a brand new Elden Ring build video. Today I'm going to be showing you guys how to create an insanely high damage dealing Arcane, Bleed and Frost build that I've aptly named the Bloodletter. For those that are new to the channel and my builds in general, I tend to place very high priority towards min-maxing towards a certain goal to achieve the most damage or efficiency with our chosen objective. In this case, we are using a dual-wielding twin blade, arcane bleed, and frost build centered around jump attacks to achieve the most possible damage per strike, per hemorrhage, and frostbite proc possible. If you just want to skip ahead to the good stuff, or the stuff you need to complete this build for yourself, I will have the timestamps on screen right now and in the description of this video. Now, before I give you guys any information, let's just go ahead and see two sneak peek clips at how this build shapes up against what is almost unanimously agreed to be the two hardest bosses in the game, Malenia and Radahn. Starting off with Malenia. As you can see, the Bloodletter build makes short work of this boss within her first stage, taking away almost the entirety of her health bar in a single attack. This is because blood loss, or hemorrhaging in this game, works in a fantastic way. Every time you apply blood loss towards an enemy, you will automatically take away a percentage of the enemy's health bar instantly, making arcane bleed builds very powerful. Once we get her down to her second stage, you can see she becomes much more of a threat, but we still manage to end her within a few seconds as soon as we are able to get within range. And I'll have you guys know that the footage you just saw is from before I even folded frostbite damage into the build, so I could have killed her much sooner. For example, here with this clip of me facing off against Radahn, one of the most difficult bosses players will face in this game. I am using this build's absolute full potential against him, as I am able to pop off all of my buffs and proc my frostbite and bleed status effects on him at the same time. The giant foe is slain in 3 single hits before he can even react to me. I'll explain all the mechanics of why everything works the way it does, and what you need to do for yourself throughout this video. Now with that all said, let's get started with the build. So let's start off with the attribute points. Okay, there's a general rule of thumb that I like to go by when I'm leveling up an Elden Ring character. I like to have a main primary focus on 3 attribute points, where I try and get these attributes to their first soft cap first. These 3 are your absolute focus that you should max out to their soft cap and then hard cap as soon as possible. From there, I have 2 secondary attributes that I will also be leveling up, but they will not be as high of a priority, but should still be brought up to the soft cap eventually. I hope that makes sense. I will have on screen a cheat sheet for when the soft caps start popping up for each skill point and what you should aim for throughout your playthrough. But obviously, if you've got the points to spare like I do, there's no problem maxing them out to 99, as they still do benefit you at the end of the day. Now for the Bloodletter build, the main attribute we will be focusing on first and foremost is Arcane. The soft cap for bleed and the diminishing returns per point start hitting around 50, and then hitting much harder around 80, which is where I would recommend aiming towards. So yeah, 80 Arcane. The second most important attribute is without a doubt Dexterity, and then after that is Strength for min-maxing your damage. Again, the soft cap for these start tapering off hard between 55 and 80 points, so that's where I'm recommending that you aim for as well. Now the weapons we will be choosing for this build all scale their damage off of Arcane, Dexterity and Strength for the most part at least. So primarily you will want to get these 3 attributes as high as you can as fast as you can, whether that be early or late into the game. From there, the next 2 attributes you will want to have a secondary focus on will be first and foremost Vigor, as this increases your health, which you will need a lot of. This is a very hard game after all, especially since we are primarily using jump attacks. We are vulnerable a lot of the time and can be easily staggered and pushed aside mid-jump. So having a lot of health to offset this downside is a high secondary priority for mid to late game. Now I do recommend aiming for at least 40 Vigor, as that is where the first soft cap comes into play, but if you want to increase it further from there when you get spare points, feel free to. From there, you will want to make sure you have a lot of endurance. This will give you a lot of stamina to actually perform these jump attacks, as each successful jump attack animation does consume a significant amount of stamina. Ideally, you want to cap this off around 50, but feel free to go higher, just like with Vigor. And then from there, nothing else really matters for this build. We aren't utilizing any Ash of Wars or abilities or sorceries primarily that will involve using focus points, so having high mind, faith, or intelligence stats are not important to this build in this scenario. So just to reiterate, make sure your Arcane, Strength, and Dexterity are at the very least around 55 or to 80 if you do have enough level up points. and then from there place high priority on your vigor and your endurance. Keep them at least around 40 and 50. But like I said, if you're a high level like me, feel free to 99 those sons of bitches and max them out. From there, let's talk weapons, arguably the most important part of the build. In the Bleed Frost Jump attack build I am proposing in this video, we will want to be dual wielding twin blades, and this is for a few reasons. Number one, they have a decently fast attack speed for their size, which allows you to follow up with a fast dual left bumper attack after you jump attack, allowing for some pretty spicy DPS. Twin blades also have one of the highest status build-ups out of all weapon types. Additionally, and most importantly, the reason we are using twin blades for this build is because each time we do perform a left bumper jump attack, which is our main attack and the whole thing the build is centered around, we will actually attack 6 times in a single animation. That's 3 attacks per weapon, which is just insane when you take into account all of the crazy synergization of items we are going to be using in this video. So really, you have 2 attacks take place on the upward motion of the jump, and then you have 4 more attacks occur on the downward motion of our jump attack, which is going to be massive for getting off bleed, blood loss procs, and frostbite procs as quickly and efficiently as possible. Basically, in a single jump attack animation, you could potentially proc blood loss and frostbite upwards of 2 or 3 times if luck favors you. So, as we've shown before in the first few clips against Radahn and Malenia, blood loss can be insanely powerful as it just straight up takes a percentage of your enemy's health away. The higher your weapon's passive blood loss or frostbite buildup, the better. If you are dual wielding 2 weapons, each dealing over 100 blood loss buildup or 100 frost buildup, you could reliably cause the status effect every second attack on an enemy, ergo, in this case, every jump attack. Anyway, the weapon I recommend using for this build will be 2 Twinned Knight Sword Twin Blades. These deal a substantial amount of physical damage, and they do scale their damage off of our main 3 chosen attributes, which is brilliant. At max rank, level 25, these blades will have a blood loss buildup of 143 and a frost buildup of 127, which is absolutely mind-boggling. These are 100% my weapons of choice for this build, but feel free to use the Gargoyle Twin Blades or the God Skin Peelers for similar results. However, I found that the Twin Knight Swords to be the most effective for this build, and they look the best in my opinion. Now, as for Ash of Wars, we will be using Seppuku on our left-hand weapon, scaling with Bleed, and then Chilling Mist on our right-hand weapon, scaling with Cold. Now, what Seppuku does when we use it is it makes us stab ourselves to apply blood loss to ourselves. Doing this activates our Talisman and Mask, which I'll get into in a little bit, which grants us 30% more damage instantly. And also, it increases the weapon's blood loss buildup by 90 for a while. Now from there, the reason we are using Chilling Mist on our right hand weapon, which is a frost skill instead of another blood type skill, is very important. So activating Chilling Mist will coat your twin blade in frost, making your chance to apply frost buildup higher. And when the frost buildup does apply, you will apply frostbite to an enemy. This will grant you more damage if you apply the frostbite status to an enemy. Basically, if enemies get full frost buildup, they will be afflicted with frostbite, which lowers their damage absorption by 20%. Like I said, this will yield higher damage for your blood loss procs. So basically, once frostbite is applied to an enemy, then all of your following blood loss and frostbite procs will be doing roughly 20% more damage, which will be very noticeable and will be absolutely chunking your enemy's health bar. So yeah, that is why we have 1 weapon Bleed and 1 weapon Frost. It yields massive amounts of damage, but technically you will have an overall less blood loss buildup than if you were to dual wield 2 twin blades with, let's say, Seppuku. But at the end of the day, it's up to you. Do you want to run double Seppuku to gain faster blood buildup and bloodlust procs, or do you want to have 1 Seppuku and 1 Chilling Mist to make your bleed damage 20% more effective? Personally, after some experimenting, I choose to use the Chilling Mist instead of dual Seppuku. It's proven to be way more effective if you are going for a pure min-max damage build. As you no doubt saw in the clips, it absolutely tanks enemies' health bars. From there, finally, for weapons, we will also be using the Dragon Communion Seal in our second left-hand slot to activate our buffs and incantations when we do feel like using them. This particular seal has the highest Arcane incant scaling in the game, as well as a bonus for Dragon abilities, so it's a no-brainer to use, especially if you do feel like using some Dragon incantations and using some of those abilities, you'll be dealing a lot more damage while you use this seal. Anyways, let's move on to Talismans. Firstly, we will be making use of the Claw Talisman. This will increase our jump attacks damage by 15%, which obviously helps our build's main attack substantially. From there, we will be using the Lord of Blood's Exaltation. This makes it so anytime we inflict a blood loss status effect on an enemy or ourselves with seppuku, we will increase our attack power overall by 20% for 20 seconds. This is an absolute must for any Arcane Bleed build, and the Bloodletter is no exception. Next up, we will be using the Rotten Winged Sword Insignia. This beautiful little bastard increases your damage per attack you dish out on an enemy, starting at 6% extra damage and maxing out at 22% extra damage. This is the best talisman to use in conjunction with consecutive hits, and this talisman works so perfectly with our jump attack build because every time we perform said jump attack with our twin blades, we are actually performing 6 attacks at once within a very short time frame. So our damage will be increased by 6% all the way to 22% in a single attack if all of our jump attack ticks hit the target. So yeah, obviously very useful. From there, we will be taking a look at our flex spot, and I say that because realistically you can put whatever you want here and it will not make much of a difference. For example, let's say you don't want to primarily use what I've suggested as a weapon. Let's say you want to use Rivers of Blood or maybe Eleonora's Pole Blades for the abilities. Well, then you're more than welcome to chuck on the Shard of Alexander, which will increase the skill damage by 15%. Or you could utilize the Godskin Swaddling Koth to make successive attacks heal you for around 3% health each proc. Or you could use the Taker's Cameo, which will just flat out restore 3% HP per kill you make. All of these are great options for general mobbing and staying alive in the game, and I tend to end up using the Swaddling Koth for that nice mid-fight healing potential. However, if I am in a boss fight and I have time to prepare, I will then switch this out for the Ritual Sword Talisman, which will increase my attack power by 10% while at maximum health, for a nice easy boost against the boss. So realistically, you could use whatever you want in this 4th spot, it doesn't really matter, use whatever you think benefits your playstyle for this build. Obviously, if you do need the attribute boost, then you should slot in a Scar Seal or a Source Seal depending on what you need. Now onto armor. Unfortunately, we do not look drippy at all. I'll be honest, this armor combo looks like fucking ass. But you guys know me, practicality over fashion. If you're min-maxing in Elden Ring, you will need to do some ugly combos like this. Anyways, firstly for the helmet, we will be wearing the white mask. This is the Bleed build's go-to. This basically does the same thing as the Lord of Blood's Exaltation, so anytime blood loss is in the vicinity, you will increase your damage by 10%. And yes, they do stack. I mentioned this earlier when I was talking about seppuku, so yeah, you'll definitely want to chuck this mask on for more overall damage. Moving on, we will be chucking on the Raptor's Black Feathers for the chest slot. We will be using this ugly cape for the pure reasons that it will be increasing our jump attack damage by a further 10%. Combining this with the Claw Talisman will actually round up its damage for a grand total of 26% bonus jump attack damage, which is just the cherry on top for static bonuses for this build. As for the rest of the armor for your hands and legs, it really does not matter in the slightest. There are no other items that will grant you bonuses for this build in the hands and legs slot. As you can see here, I've gone with the Bull Goat Gauntlets and Greaves, purely because this will grant you the highest amount of in-slot physical resistance and poise in the game. The higher your poise, the less likely you will be staggered, so I think this is beneficial for the build. To reiterate, the white mask and raptor feathers are essential, and then for the hands and legs, use whatever you want. Now onto summons. Obviously these are not needed for your actual build. Some max level summons are powerful enough to solo bosses for you, so some of you may be a bit reserved and prefer not to use summons, but I figured it's worth mentioning. Primarily the best summon is without a doubt going to be the Mimic tier for this build. This summon is a straight up copy of you. Mimic tiers are only good if your build is good, and this build is a straight up monster. So if you really want to embarrass the boss, pop off a Mimic summon and destroy everything around you. Your Mimic will be applying Bloodlust and Frostbite and utilizing jump attacks and everything with the same bonuses you do. It will be doing everything you do. It's basically a carbon copy. So yeah, it is very, very good. Additional options would be the Black Blade Tish and the Dung Eater Puppet. Both of these deal great bleed damage and can hold their own very well, but yeah, obviously nothing beats just summoning yourself as a companion. Now onto the final part of the build video, the Pysick Potion and other buffs you should be running. Firstly, for your Pysick, you'll want to run 1/2 with the Thorny Cracked Tear. This will basically do the same effect as the Rotten Wing Talisman, and yes, the two do stack. So this just allows you to deal a stupid amount of extra consecutive damage on top of your already stupid damage. In the other half of your potion, you could really use whatever you want. Personally, I prefer it to be something akin to damage mitigation or healing so that I stay alive easily. Most of the time, I'm going to be choosing the Opaline Bubble tier to grant me a bubble shield which negates the next incoming hit by a massive 80% or so. But honestly, feel free to use whatever you want for both slots. This is just what I recommend for the build to get the most damage as possible. From there, the following buffs will be what we use before a big boss battle so that we can get the most damage possible. We will want to switch to our Dragon Seal to utilize the Fire Grant Me Strength incantation. This will increase our damage by 20% for 30 seconds. We will also be using the Golden Vow incantation, which grants a further 15% damage increase and a defensive 10% damage mitigation effect that lasts for 80 seconds. And of course we have the Seppuku Ash of War that has already been covered, but I will go over it again. This activates your blood loss damage buffs for 30% extra damage, and also grants your weapon 90 extra blood buildup. Then finally for buffs, we have Chilling Mist, which, as mentioned previously, debuffs your enemy's defenses by 20%, which can prove to be insanely effective if comboed with your bleed procs. Now I know that might be a lot to throw at you guys all at once, which is why I'm also going to show you guys the buff rotation in order you should perform. Okay, so firstly you're going to want to start with your Pysick potion. All of that stuff lasts around 3 minutes, so pop that first. This will activate the bubble tier for damage negation and the thorny tier for extra consecutive damage. Next, you will want to switch your left hand to the Dragon Seal, or whatever seal you have at your disposal. You'll want to use Golden Vow first for the 15% extra damage and 10% damage negation, which lasts 80 seconds. From there, switch to Fire Grant Me Strength for that 20% extra damage, which lasts for 30 seconds. You can see that we are popping these in order of the longest duration to the shortest duration, so we get all of them active for as long as possible. And then finally, you'll want to activate both Seppuku and Chilling Mist on your twin blades. This can be a bit tricky because both effects do go away if you unequip your weapon while switching between them. So to do this quickly and activate both skills on both weapons, you'll have to do this little trick last. You'll have to main hand your left hand twin blade by holding Y or triangle and then pressing left bumper or L1. This will cause you to two-hand your left hand weapon. Now once it's being main-handed, use your Seppuku skill, and then from there just go ahead and press the same button combo to go back to dual wielding, and then use the Chilling Mist to activate that skill. This will allow you to keep your Seppuku proc on your left hand blade while activating Chilling Mist on your right hand blade, allowing you to have both weapon skills active at the same time. So yeah, that's the buff rotation. Use them in this order to maximize your damage as much as you can. Obviously, if you've opted to choose the dual wield Seppuku on your right hand blade, then keep the same rotation as I've already shown, but instead just use another Seppuku last instead of Chilling Mist to enjoy that extra blood loss buildup. Now obviously I'm not the best Elden Ring player, there may be a better combo than what I've stated in this video, so if you are aware of any ways to improve this build or this rotation, feel free to comment below and I'll give you a heart react so that others can see. So yeah, ladies and gentlemen, that has been the Bloodletter build. With this build, you'll be proccing blood loss buildups multiple times every single jump attack, as well as frostbite buildups, which will then increase your blood loss damage. Now with all of that and all of our buffs and benefits in combination with how bleed damage works in this game, that leads to an insanely deadly strike that can absolutely melt boss health bars in as little as 2 hits. You will breeze through this game and make your way through the lands between, ripping apart demigods like they are nothing. Send this video to your friend that has been wishing for an easy mode in Elden Ring, because this build is basically that. Everything becomes incredibly easy due to your broken jump attack damage. I do hope you all enjoyed my first Elden Ring build video. Please be sure to share it around if it helped you or if you learned something new. I'm going to be releasing a lot of Elden Ring builds in the future, and again, if there is anything I can improve upon, be sure to let me know down below in the comments. Like I said, I'm not a pro at this game. This is the first Soulsborne game I've ever touched, but I am loving it and I'm enjoying it thoroughly. Like I said, I'm not a pro, but I know how to make a good build no matter the game. That's going to do it for me. A massive shout out to all my current Patreons and channel members. You're all legends and thank you for your support. If you'd like to support me further, then consider becoming a Patreon or channel member or checking out my merch store. We've got a lot of great designs and benefits, so be sure to check that out in the description, along with my other social medias like Discord and Twitter. Subscribe if you're new, and like the video if you enjoyed. I've been Tia, and I'll catch you in the next one. Welcome to Valhalla.